Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton, Sofia Rivas Herrera, and Enrique Alvarez here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Sofia, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Starting the last Monday of January, finally. Do you
Can't
feel like January lasts so long?
I, I can't believe we're almost into February 2023. So, but I guess it was a long month for you, Sofia. Is that right?
It felt that way, but good start of 2023.
That is right. That is right. Enrique, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. And of course, Sophia, very nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Well,
Hi.
we're delighted to have y'all both here, and we've had a lot of fun on these. Well, today's about all that supply chain buzz, right? Our every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time, we tackle the leading developments and news really across global business. And man, we get to do it. Greg is on assignment, we'll call it, right? His Kansas City Chiefs won last night, so he is on assignment doing some in-depth reporting. So we've got Sophia and Enrique with us here today, and we can't be more delighted to walk through the news and getting y'all's take on some of what's going on out there. So, Enrique and Sophia, you're all buckled up, ready to go?
We're
Ready
ready.
to go.
All
Ready to
right, y'all
go.
are always ready. I believe always ready. And folks, not only are you going to hear me and Enrique and Sophia talk about what's going on in global business, but we want to hear from you. We see a bunch of folks already in the comments. We will be sharing your perspectives throughout, and I want to start by saying hello to a few folks, Sophia and Enrique. Let's see who's with us already here today. We've got Kanchan tuned in from India via LinkedIn. Great to see you here today. Cecil is back with us from Grand Rapids, Michigan, also via LinkedIn. Shelly Phillips, she is a regular here, Sophia and Enrique, and Shelly always brings it from the beautiful state of Colorado. Have either one of y'all ever been to Colorado?
Not yet.
I
Not
have.
yet.
It's a beautiful state. Beautiful state for sure.
It is. Shelly, great to see you here. And Sophia, I like your optimistic answer. Not yet. Not yet. Sounds like that's on your bucket list, maybe. Terry Butler tuned in from the awesome city of Chicago, also via LinkedIn. Great to see you here. Josh Goody. Hey, we're getting the weather report right on cue from beautiful Seattle, Washington. Sunny and 25 degrees, Sophia, Enrique, 25 degrees.
And
That
that's
Josh,
sounds
Fahrenheit, right?
Josh, bundle up. 25. That is cold, and I wonder how much rain y'all have been getting. Uh, Catherine's holding down the fort for us on YouTube. Great to see you, Catherine. Happy Buzz Day indeed. Hey, David, great to see you here via LinkedIn. Um, all kidding aside, very really hated to hear about your family member. So prayers and best wishes are with your family, David. And finally, I know we couldn't hit everybody, but Adrian's back with us here in Atlanta, GA, open to connect. Love that, as we all are. Okay, Enrique and Sophia. So before we get into our first item today, we're going to share something we put out over the weekend. Before we do that, I'd like for both of y'all to give me and give our global supply chain now family what's one cool thing you did over the weekend. Sophia, you were sharing a couple things pre-show, and we're going to hear from Enrique too. But Sophia, what was a cool thing you did over the weekend?
Yeah, so I did an activity that I haven't done for 20 years. So in my city, there's every Sunday they close the streets and you can go on bikes or just walk them. And I did that when I was very little with my family once, but we never came back. And yesterday I went with some friends over there and I was riding a bike again and it was so, I mean, I felt like a whole new experience again. It was nice. I didn't fall, so that was good.
And the weather cooperated too. It was a gorgeous day as
Yeah,
well, right, Sophia?
gorgeous day, and it was kind of nice to finally experience and leave that those streets that you always go by car,
Mm.
but you just suddenly see like pedestrians only. That was nice.
I love that. Different perspective. Well, love that, and love is something new you hadn't done in 20 years. By the way, Jose, great to see you here. Love
Hey,
the
hi.
content y'all churn out. So nice to see you, Jose, via LinkedIn from Las Vegas. this go around. So Jose, safe travels. Enjoy Las Vegas. Great to see you. Okay, Enrique, that's gonna be tough to top. So Sofia did something she hadn't done in 20 years. Really enjoyed it. I just love the picture she painted as she described it. What's one thing you did this weekend?
Not going to even try to top it. I'm sure that it was a lovely day biking. 25, different scale though, weather.
Yeah.
We had some friends over for dinner on Saturday and haven't really seen them in a very long time before the pandemic. So we had a blast. And I did want to say something to Jose Montoya. He's in Las Vegas or in Nevada. And there's the
Correct.
Manifest conference this week. And so I'll be there. I know Jose will be there. But if Jose, you are, just let's see if we can meet.
Well, now Enrique, you're really humble, but you're one of the esteemed speakers at Manifest this coming week. So looking forward to hearing all your good things as you wow them.
Yeah,
Right,
you
Sofia?
made it sound that you were just an attendee. You're not.
Well, I
He's
will
a-
be speaking too, but it's a very, very good conference. It'll go the whole week. So yes.
always too humble, but love that, Enrique. Looking forward to hearing your key takeaways from the week coming up. Okay, so on a different note, kind of switching gears here, I want to bring this in. So Enrique and Sofia, once a week, we publish With That Said, right? It's a LinkedIn newsletter put out by the Supply Chain Now team that we've been doing, I don't know, for probably 3 or 4 months now. And we try to make it to be very different content than everything else we do, podcast streams, webinars, whatever. And this past weekend was the 37th anniversary of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, right? That iconic moment for a lot of folks, at least maybe in my generation and others. You know exactly where you were when you got the news, and it's just a terrible, terrible loss for 7 astronauts, their families. The space program, was set back for quite some time. I want to ask y'all a quick question. Do you remember where y'all were? I mean, Enrique, do you remember where you were when you saw the news about the Challenger?
I don't exactly remember where I was. I was in Mexico City at the time, and I remember actually watching it on TV. I could have been either with my mom or my grandmother because they usually dropped us off at my grandmother's house before school sometimes. But I do remember the image when the whole thing happened, and it was just definitely sad.
It was awful. And Sophia, any thoughts about the shuttle program or the Challenger disaster?
So that was on 86, right?
That's right.
So I was still being planned in my family to appear in the world.
Yep.
And no, but I do recall it through my family's memories of what they were doing. And I think there was a high expectation from everyone to work, right? For that to work. And also a lot of excitement. I think at least my dad had his hopes up when he was a kid to be an astronaut.
Really?
And when he saw that it was actually happening, he was very excited about it. And I do remember when learning about this event, it was very tragic, and also it kind of made everyone feel like, okay, so it's not, we are not able to do it. But I think that apart from that, we carried on, right?
Yes, that's right.
It wasn't a complete loss of effort and hard work, but also like a way of, I would say, transcending, these astronauts transcending everyone's life.
Right. Yeah. Well put. Very poetic, Sophia. And I'd love to learn more about your father's aspirations to be an astronaut, because I really think the shuttle program, because it ran from the late 70s through 2011. So my oldest daughter was 2 years old when the shuttle came to an end. So they don't know a whole bunch about the shuttle program. But to your point, Sophia and Enrique, I think it did. It inspired, the program really inspired all sorts of folks around the globe, right? And I think the silver lining, which you kind of spoke to there, Sophia, with the Challenger disaster, these 7 brave souls right here, really, they became inspirations and inspired many folks to serve, whether you're in the space industry or whether you're doing something else. especially from like a technology standpoint. So, lives were not lost in vain by any means. And a few folks, Larry, great to see you. He was watching it on TV, as was I, Larry, in grade school. David was watching it at school. Krista McAuliffe was the school teacher that was going up on the Challenger on that fateful day in 1986. So, but lives were not lost in vain. Hopefully, we can all find some inspiration, not just with the shuttle, but each of those 7 astronauts. So tying it all together. With that said, we really focused on snippets of each of those 7 astronauts, maybe some things you didn't know about their background and whatnot. So check that out every Saturday, usually Saturday morning. It kind of depends on how busy Enrique and Sofia our Saturday morning is. So anyway, moving right along. So y'all ready to dive into our first story here today, Enrique, Sofia?
Absolutely.
All right. On a much, much lighter note, we're going to be talking about flowers, right? So I want to start with this story, as Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Now, Valentine's Day, y'all might know this, the number one holiday in the U.S. for spending on flowers. Get this, 28% of all money spent on flowers for all holidays all year long is spent all on Valentine's Day. But as reported by Global Press Journal, supply chain issues, like everything else, continue to plague the flower industry. Now, this story, I'm going to probably say this name incorrectly, Enrique and Sofia. So y'all help me out here. Zinacantan? Am I coming close with that region in southern Mexico?
No.
Okay.
Not even close.
Please.
So I'll let Sofia actually take this one because I believe it's close to where she is.
Zinacantan.
Zinacantan. Zinacantan.
Oh, wow,
Is that better?
you did it really fast.
Well, you gave me a great Zinacantan. So it's in southern Mexico, and this is a major floriculture market, right? But critical chemicals for farming flowers, well, the costs have risen dramatically, doubling or even tripling. Now, Mexico imports 2/3 of its nitrogen fertilizer, with a lot of that coming from Russia, which obviously is a much different market right now as opposed to 18 months ago. Now, some say that there's an opportunity at this moment, given all those constraints, to move their fertilization methods to a more sustainable, locally found option. But of course, price increases are being passed on to customers. Here in the U.S., some markets and analysts are reporting that flower prices are 25% higher this year than last year. And here's a did you know? And then I'm going to get Sofia and Enrique's take here. According to the American Society of Florists, 250 million roses are produced for Valentine's Day alone. Holy man, that's a huge number. So, Sofia, your thoughts here on what's going on?
Well, I think that basically, I do feel there's an opportunity for local sourcing of fertilizers. But on the other hand, it's very important to find one that kind of equates to the effect that the Russian one had, right? Or like that quality level. And because at the end, you want that same effect, perhaps at a better price and better conditions for your health as well, and not trying to use more of a new one, right? It won't work that way. I think another part of why is it so hard, I would say, to balance cost in this type of supply chain is because at the end, the value of a flower, especially from Mexico, I think the raw cost of it is very low. So adding value to it in a way of how can we make this product, of a higher value, right? It fulfills one day of demand, right? Which would be Valentine's Day. Other flowers will, and we've talked about this in previous shows, right? But in other parts of the year, but it's a very seasonal thing, a product that you sell.
Yes, that's right.
And these places are very rich in the type of ground, very rich in the type of nutrients that a flower and weather as well. So all the conditions are there, but once you want to commercialize it or sell it elsewhere, that's when it breaks, especially in Mexico. So even though you have all these high production of flowers, they don't get to where they need to be sold fast enough or well enough.
Yeah. And to your point, we as consumers, we all want those blemish free, those perfect flowers. To your point, Sophia, that's a great point. Now, Enrique, I'm gonna get your take here, but Nerf first says, looks like I will be shopping for flowers at the local plastic shop this Valentine's Day. Don't tell my wife though, Nerf said. Nerf, great to have you here via LinkedIn as always. All right, so Enrique, your thoughts here on the story.
Well, one of the things that really caught my attention the most when I read this article was like there has to be a shift in the way that consumers perceive all these different products, which Sophia a little bit alluded to it. But I feel like if we want to continue having this like incredibly red, huge flowers, I mean, that really cannot be achieved with organic, more natural ways of manufacturing or planting and producing this type of flower. So for me, it will be interesting. And we see something similar, Scott, in the fruit market and vegetables, right? I mean, all those different fruits that are not perfectly rounded or not perfectly colored, they're being basically just trashed. And so we'll see what happens to the flowers, but I guess consumers will have to be changing their mindsets a bit to not expect the, I guess, amazing looking flowers like we can all get, but definitely value the fact that sustainability is important. And that's definitely more, should be more appealing than maybe just having like a super big rose or having like a super red rose.
Right.
Yeah. And on that note, I think it's also a matter of rebranding, right? What is
Right.
beautiful?
Right.
What is a good flower? Should it be more the thought of it, right? To Nerf's
agree.
point, does it matter if
Yes.
it's plastic, right? I mean, can we do a better job at, okay, these are the things that you can get in a better sourcing and manufacturing way? Can we abide to those standards and like those standards as well?
And I guess to your point, Sophia, I feel like that's a very good way of actually adding a little bit more value, because we know that people are willing, up to 10% of the people are willing to pay a green premium or a sustainability premium for products that they know are sourced correctly and made with natural raw materials. So to your point, we could probably tackle both kind of problems at the same time. These farmers down in Mexico could potentially make a little bit more margin if they do start shifting their supply chain towards the more sustainable alternatives.
So we're going to touch on that. That's a nice little tease there, Enrique. We're going to touch on that in the latter half of the show. But I love y'all's perspective here. A lot of great take there. And as Nerf said, kind of what Sophia was talking, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And as Sophia said, it's the thought that counts. So Nerf, you started quite a discussion here. All right.
I still think that Nerf has to go with the real flowers, or he might get in trouble this
Right.
this Valentine's Day. So I just
That's
wanted
right.
to point it out.
Yeah, don't blame the Buzz crew here, Nerf, if you do get plastic flowers. We're all recommending you get the real deal, perhaps. Okay. And going back to the Challenger story, T Squared, like many of us, and T Squared holds down the fort as well on YouTube, the original OG there. And he remembers the Challenger story very well, seared into the consciousness of me, like so many folks agreed. T Squared, just a terrible disaster. Okay. I was going to say a much lighter note, but unfortunately it's not, because we're going to be talking about the supply chain of war and war fighting. So as reported here by forces.net and many others, it's been the news everywhere here lately, NATO countries have made a big commitment recently to Ukraine, where they're going to be sending modern tanks to help the country repel the ongoing invasion by Russia, which is almost a year old now. Man, ton of suffering. So the main tanks being contributed that all of y'all are hearing, the Challenger tank from Great Britain, the Leopard 2 from Germany. Now I've heard the Leopard 2, which being a kind of a bit of a military nerd for all of my life, I've always heard it referred to as the Leopard. However, in some of the interviews, including with military experts, I've heard them pronounce it Leopard, which is interesting. But regardless, the Challenger tank, the Leopard 2, and of course here, pictured here, the M1 Abrams tank from the U.S. But beyond the training on operations and maintenance that these commitments are going to require, new supply chains to especially keep these tanks fueled up are going to be needed. The Abrams, in particular, is perhaps the thirstiest, the biggest gas guzzler between the three tanks, as some analysts say that the Abrams, uses 10 gallons of gas per hour just to essentially idle, and 60 gallons an hour when moving in combat and moving positions. And by the way, it can run on a variety of fuels, but as everyone's heard, the JP8, aka jet fuel, is preferred to run the Abrams. So lots of concerns out there in the defense community in terms of setting up successful fuel supply chains and other logistics that will allow Ukraine to be able to take full advantage of the tanks and bring them into the battle in a very effective means. So Enrique, I'll start with you here. Your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I heard someone said once, like a good general talks a lot about strategy, but an excellent general talks about logistics. And this is a really clear example of what this is all about. They're sending all these tanks that could make a huge impact in repelling the Russian forces, but at the same time, it's posing a very challenging situation on the Ukrainian logistics team to figure out how to move them, fuel them, and put them to good use. So it just kind of shows, I think it's a very interesting example of something that's well-intentioned as that may or may not be used efficiently, right?
That's right. That's right. And Sophia, I'm coming to you next, but really quick, Josh says, not to mention the mechanics and that talent,
Right.
all the spare parts, the ammo, all that stuff that
they're
that
fixing
needs
them,
to come to the
repairing
tanks.
them.
That's right. Sophia, your thoughts here.
Good point.
Yeah, I think Josh is spot on his comment. It's not only about gas, but also about everything else that's needed to actually working, right? And yeah, echoing a bit of what Enrique said, is it's kind of when you choose a tool for your company to solve a problem and you get the tool, and then you are like, but how do I use it? And
Right.
I feel it's the same kind of problem. It's like, oh, we have this problem, we need to solve it now. You get the tool, and then it's but it's not the right fit, or oh, we don't have the talent to work it, or we don't have the parts, or the kind of fuel, or it's in another language, perhaps, and that's always a barrier, and always an obstacle that at the end we put to ourselves, because
Right.
we're very focused on the now, but not the whole picture, right?
Yes, well said. And to your point, Sophia, I bet in the late 70s, I think is when the M1 Abrams tank came into service. I doubt that working instructions were thought of. There's going to be a future need to be written in Russian or Ukrainian or that language, right? They've got to reinvent all of that to make sure these folks, to your point, Sophia, they can take these advanced weapons of war and put them into use. Enrique, I'll give you the final word here on this tank story.
Well, it just gives you a better sense of how integrate logistics is for everything we do, right?
Yep.
And we take a lot of these things for granted, and I think you can see it in any single thing we do. It's very, very detail oriented. Everything has some logistics component to it, and of course now I'm sure that the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people using these tanks are going to find a way to do it efficiently and effectively. And again, we hope that this horrible, horrible war ends up soon.
Yes, that's right. On a lighter note, it's been rumored that just taking this shot, the tank used 370 gallons of gas. Just taking the picture here, but and one other point, because the Ukrainian military has been using the T-72 tank, which of course is the older Russian tank's been around for a long time. The M1 Abrams is 20 to 30 tons heavier than the T-72. So and of course, while they know the T-72 like the back of their hand, they got to learn 3 new pieces of very complex equipment. So we'll see how that it goes. And to Shelley's point here, plus the amount of training needed to operate, right? We all touched on that, these very sophisticated tanks. Absolutely.
And all that, sorry,
Yeah, go
all
ahead.
those gas consumption, it made me kind of think like, does the term sustainability in war exist?
Mm,
I don't know,
I
actually.
don't. I don't know either. I've got a hunch. I think it's a great question. I've got a hunch that is one of the first things that gets sacrificed
Yeah,
in
exactly.
war. But you know what? As we all know, who wants to be at war, right? War.
No
There
one.
are no winners, right? There's no winners. There's a tons of suffering. And so here's the best part of all this, Enrique and Sofia, in my view. Let me get Jerry's comment in here before I do that. So Jerry says the biggest issue on these tanks is speed to market. It's going to be interesting to see which tanks are in use by the Ukrainians first. Agreed, Jerry. And from what I understand, it's going to probably be the Leopard tank will be the first to actually get on the scene and get trained up and be able to be put into combat. But we'll see. It's a great point there, Jerry. But here's the best news I think related to anything with Ukraine is folks, you've got this outstanding initiative that's being led by Maureen and Enrique and the Vector Global Logistics team, but it's really built and it stands, as Enrique will tell you, it stands on the shoulders of a global community of folks that want to make a difference. So, of course, I'm talking about this Leveraging Logistics for Ukraine initiative, which has been going on, Enrique, I would say about 6 months. Is that close?
I can't. Yes, and I can't believe that it's been this long, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, it's sad that it's had to continue, but real outcomes. As folks here on the Buzz have heard us talk about, over 670,000 pounds of humanitarian aid has been shipped and made it into Ukraine and Poland in that region that for folks that really are in need. And I'm really proud of what y'all have been leading and the global family that's come together to support this effort and get stuff done. So here's your opportunity. So next week, there's a once a month meeting that not only helps coordinate these efforts, but they have great speakers that come to these meetings. On the last one I attended, they had an American that volunteered. His name is Baccarat Brad. Is that right, Enrique?
Brad. Yep.
So Baccarat Brad has volunteered to go overseas and help evacuate people. And he's evacuated hundreds of folks. He was interviewed by NBC News and really saved those Ukrainian lives, getting them out of harm's way, getting them into Poland and elsewhere. So he spoke, and we could ask him questions at the last meeting. So folks, join us. If you can show up just to soak it all in. You can show up to kind of figure out where you could play your part, or if you've got something to bring to bear, resources, you name it. Hey, all of you are welcome. Enrique, I'll give you a quick thought. How would you encourage people to get involved here?
Well, I think it's everyone's responsibility. I think we all have a say into this war and the effects that we're seeing in this war. I mean, the first comment that you made was about this flower people down in Mexico being struggling because there's a war in Ukraine. So this world belongs to all of us. So we should all be involved. We should all be outraged by what's going on. And I would also say that if you're out there and you're listening to this episode, if you have any potential products that you want to donate or can donate and you want us to ship them, we're still offering to ship some of those products for free. We've been shipping 2 containers for free since this started, and we'll continue doing so. So I feel like now we're running a little bit low on the companies that are donating products. So if you know anyone or are one of those companies or people, just let us know and join the conversation.
Well said, Enrique. Sofia, your thoughts around this Leveraging Logistics for Ukraine initiative?
Yeah, I think those sessions sometimes we feel like we cannot contribute to them, but sometimes just by attending, it's a kind of roundtable format. So I like it because just by hearing, something will come to your mind. Perhaps not you directly can help with something you do, but it will make you think, oh, I know someone that does this that might be good for etc. Right? So something will trigger a thought in your mind to participate. So don't feel like you don't have any impact on positive impact in the Ukraine war.
Well said.
There's always something you can do.
Yes,
And
Sophia.
the effort's getting to the right people, right? Which is the other part when
Correct.
you're donating things. You have to make sure that you're actually getting it to the people that needed it the most. And Scott, maybe at some point we can link the interview that was made, because we showed some videos and pictures, not only of the products that we've been helping send, but also of the letter campaign. And we sent, I think, about 2,500 letters. So it just makes it real. And once I
Yes.
think you make it real, people are incredibly willing to help out.
That's right. Folks, the first step is joining this monthly planning session, really a monthly meeting of Kindred Spirits, February 7th. That's next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to have you. And as Sophia mentioned, it is a butterfly effect. Something good will come out of it. So, and clearly the outcomes, the numbers we're talking about, driven by this global family of concerned citizens and folks that want to do good, is testimony to that. So, okay. Two other quick comments since we're still on the Ukrainian issue here. Greg says that, Greg, great to see you here today. The Abrams tank, from his understanding, is going to have a difficult issue with parts, probably spare parts. Also heard that the top secret armor on the sides will be removed. That is a differentiator between the Abrams and other modern battle tanks. Now, Josh, and Greg, you may be a veteran too. I don't know. I know Josh. I think Josh is an Army veteran, I believe. Josh says, depends on the tech inside. Most times, the U.S. or any country sells military vehicles. They don't include an up-to-date tech package. Has the ground hardened yet in Ukraine? I don't know. Abrams was meant for sand and rock. Not sure how that beast handles the mud. Excellent point there, Josh. Okay, so let's and this, I'm not sure who this LinkedIn user is. This we'll find out though. They say, well said, Enrique. I think that is where hesitancy originates. Is my donation helping the correct people? Excellent point. And we've got boots on the ground. We're talking with the families and the individuals in need. Coordinate. They're a big part of the process here. But that's a great point. Okay, and that's Brandon. So Brandon, appreciate that point there. All right, folks, let's keep on driving. We're going to be talking. We're going to shift major gears here. I love talking retail supply chains, and we're all consumers. And I think practitioners and consumers, that's a very interesting intersection, always in my mind, at least. Let's see here. We, from our friends at Retail Dive, great article here, which speaks to 8 trends that direct-to-consumer brands are working through that we all need to keep our eye on for 2023. So I'm going to share a couple of these that were mentioned rather than go through all of them. And then we're going to get Sophia and Enrique's take here. So one of them is a much bigger focus on profitability rather than just grow. I didn't think that was a 2023 trend. I think that's been around for a long time. But hey, I digress. Demand from consumers on more sustainability in retail continues to increase. Sophia, we were just talking about that, you and Enrique. Rethinking returns and charging for them, perhaps. Y'all may be familiar with all the returns and reverse logistics interviews we've had here with our good friend Tony Sciarrotta in RLA, and the balancing act of brick and mortar and e-commerce, right, and digital commerce. Those are just a couple of those that were featured in this article. Sophia, which one of those or the other 4 really caught your eye?
Perhaps I'm going to touch on returns a little bit. If
Sure.
I were to be the queen of returns or something like that, I would be so strict on policy returns. Like, I feel like this huge customization of you can return it through this channel, you can return it for us, you can keep it for as long as you want, and there's no restriction on the X days that you have to until returning, or those kind of things have been like shooting in our feet all this time. Like, and we know this, and we've experienced it, and we still have all our returns piled up in many DCs around the world, and there is no way to tackle those and put them back to shelf at a faster pace, because we are also very concerned on the output of whatever we're selling, right? So that's just one idea. Maybe it's a very intense idea, but I feel like there should be a play from the consumer to be responsible for their returns. And that also echoes to sustainability.
Yep. Yeah. Love your thoughts there. And if Greg White were here, he would vehemently disagree with what I'm going to say. We've talked about this before. But I, as a consumer, would be happy to pay some sort of return fee. All right. Especially, I mean, if a product doesn't work, I think if we look at it category by category, really break it down, I think there's some gains to be made. But just this weekend, Enrique, I'm going to get you next. Just this weekend, I was buying. If y'all bought lights for your kitchen recently, that is a nightmare. It is a nightmare. So there's 3,000 million different types, and you got 1,800 serial numbers. And I went to my local hardware store. And I need to get 3 types of bulbs. I was 1 for 3, Enrique and Sofia. Terrible. Good in baseball, but that's it. And so I had to take the bulbs that were not a good fit back. And I tell you what I did, Sofia and Enrique. I made sure I protected them. I repackaged them just like they were. I made sure when I was opening them, I didn't, tear it up, because I really want those bulbs to hit the shelf again and get resold. And that's one of the greatest challenges with returns. They aren't able to be repurchased. But Enrique, enough of my yammering. Your thoughts here around this, the article, the 8 retail trends that Retail Dive has identified.
Well, no, I actually agree a little bit. The trick there, just to finalize that comment, and I'll move on to one of the other segments that caught my attention, is, well, how do you do that in such a way that you're not discouraging clients from buying?
Right.
And who will be the first one to do it, right? Because that's the other thing. We kind of like race each other to the bottom of things. And in many, many different things, we're like, oh, we'll give this for free, and then this other person gives this for free, and then there's no coming back. So we're already kind of like very deep down into the hole of this. But I agree, it's a big problem. You have interviewed multiple people, and you have talked with Greg extensively about returns, because it's a very interesting topic, and there's really not like a very customer facing solution out there that might be applicable and practical and efficient, but we'll continue talking about that.
Yes.
I wanted to
it'll only get more important, Enrique.
It will only get more important.
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
And sustainability is a big part of that too. So I think that maybe if you couple it with sustainability, like Sofia said, maybe you can start kind of creating some awareness in the consumers to be like, well, you're not really paying for this, you're really paying for all this sustainability and emissions that you're causing by having to return more than what you normally should be returning.
Yes. Yep.
I was very fascinated by the brick and mortar kind of balance, right? How much of that do you want to do it online? How much do you actually want to have a store? And the thing that I thought about is we've been locked in for almost 2 years.
Right.
Some of the kids that kind of started pandemic when they were 13, now they're 15, which is my personal example with my children. And but some of them were 15, logged in for 2 years. Now they're 17. And before this, you mentioned that you took your kids to the mall for the first time. Right. So I'm thinking, well, it's very exciting because at the end of the day, I feel like all these retail chains don't know the answer, and they'll have to really test. And no one really knows the answer because we've been locked in for like 2 years. So this whole new consumer base is coming to the market, and we don't know whether they would like to go back to the malls. Would they like to go and buy? So I think that's going to be a very good opportunity for companies, and a very good opportunity for companies that come in very open-mindedly and create something new. Because now I think it's the right time to do it.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So you called me out. He called me out, Sophia. So I gotta say, like, hey, we did, when I lived in the perimeter area of Atlanta, I'd pop in the perimeter mall. That was really BK before kids. But we, as a family, we've never gotten up.
Okay, BK.
Yeah.
I got that acronym. Right? I was like,
but we took the whole family to Mall of Georgia over the weekend. And it was the first time, as Enrique said, we've ever been to the mall as a family. And, and I kind of wanted to, do some window shopping to get some steps in, but I got to, and it was a good experience, and we'll be back. But I got to share this with y'all, Enrique and Sofia. I think I may have touched on this pre-show. We went to a pet store, and I'm not going to name them, as we're, considering adding another pet. Folks, they wanted
another pet?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
We're gonna have Noah's Ark around here soon, Sophia. Folks, they wanted $6,000 for a beagle puppy. $6,000. I was blown away. You can finance, and they allowed financing, which is
That
just
is
an
interesting.
interesting world we live in. Anyway, but yeah, it was good to get out, and it's really interesting. I enjoyed reading through all of these trends. You know, some of them were what's old is new again, but some of them were really made you think about where retail is heading,
Yeah.
where we are, and where we're heading next. So good
Just
stuff there.
one
Yeah.
note on that, because I read a similar, well, a related article during the weekend. Uh, this is targeted for the Latin America consumers, but it's interesting because it says that consumers really in these on these trips to go into the mall or to a retail store, they really want their trip to be worth it, right? So they really value that they can do a lot of things at the same place. And this is basically because of the shift we had on COVID. So we really reduced our, well, many people that had this ability to stay at home reduced their commuting time.
Mm.
So now commuting time or the hours you spend on traffic is really valued, right? So they want to, if they're going, they want to be able to shoot two birds with one stone, right?
Yes.
So that's another thing that could possibly rethink the way in which we build these stores and the type of services that we provide there.
That's such a great point because unlike the old days, and I worked in retail, where customers were willing to, stand in line and that's that's changed quite a bit to your point, Sophia. So that'll be an interesting consideration moving forward. Okay, I want to get to a couple of these comments here. Jerry says, can we charge for returns without offending the customer, especially if the reason for the return is a mistake of the supplier or retailer? Some great questions there. And Greg, along those same lines, says U.S. consumers have become accustomed, I might say spoiled, Greg,
Yes.
to
Yes, for sure.
they've been accustomed to no questions asked returns. This will be a hard mindset to change. Excellent point. Shirley, yes. That's a ton for a puppy. And as Tevin says, time to get a dog from the shelter. Tevin, I love you, man. And we got to get reconnected. But on a serious note, we have both of our current pets are rescues. We've taken in I think our previous 3 pets were rescues. So that's typically where we've gone. This is the first time, much like me being in the mall for the first time forever. It's one of my first times in recent memory in a pet store. And times have changed. It felt more like you're stepping foot on an auto dealership, and there's actually autos that are available for sale. Inventory is good. So yeah, we're going to be looking at the shelter again, the SPCA. Tevin, we'll see. All right. So Enrique and Sofia love talking retail. One of my favorite topics. Let's shift gears though. Now, important to note, Enrique and Sofia, I am never confused as an economist. That was not one of my strongest micro and macro economics in college. Accounting, man, it tortured me throughout
Me
my
too.
time. Okay, Sophia, good. All right.
Like, is it called tea tables? And
Let's go with it. We'll go with it.
nightmare for me.
But a few economic metrics I want to touch on here. The Commerce Department last week reported that, a little bit of good news here, inflation's pace has continued to slow for the 3rd consecutive month. That's good. Still, prices are still going up, just not as much.
Mhm.
Consumer spending has decreased 0.2% from November to December. And, the Fed, that's one of the things they're after. They're trying to strike that balance between controlling inflation, but not constricting the economy. Some retailers are reporting that consumers, here's something that goes back to that flower part of the conversation, consumers are less and less likely to accept and pay for increased prices on some goods. So we might be hitting a ceiling in some case there. And by the way, here's a little, this seems intuitive, but it's a good little nugget here. Consumer spending makes up 70%, 70, of the U.S. economy. One last note here. Despite lots of layoffs, sadly, especially across the tech sector, the unemployment rate remains at a long time, like a 50-year low of 3.5%. So a few economic metrics here today on the Buzz. Sophia, your thoughts there?
I think that I learned this a bit late when I started working, but it is really important to look at these economic background and context also for the way in which you plan either supply or your the products you're going to sell. Because sometimes we overestimate consumer behavior or demand. We're very optimistic and we think that people with a great marketing strategy, with no return policy, no questions asked for returns or etc., we can keep our numbers up. And I think it's a good time to start leveraging this type of analysis and rethinking the way you do things, and understanding, is my product one of those that people are not willing to pay more if it goes up, if the price goes up, right?
We only have so much money. we can only
Right.
It's only feasible to pay only so much more, right, Sophia? Otherwise we gotta pull back, right?
Correct.
All right, Enrique, I'm gonna get your take next. But Shelly says here, I don't see how some of those numbers can be right, especially unemployment. Shelly, it's a great call out. And that doesn't, as I was digesting these numbers, especially in light of just last week we were talking about the rolling list of companies that have announced layoffs. I bet as some of those benefits and some of the severance packages start to come to an end and are used up, and as those folks truly hit the street looking for their next gig, that we'll start to see that unemployment rate of 3.5% probably change dramatically. And also, if we do move into, and again, not to be confused with an economist, but if we move into a full-blown recession and we see more and more layoffs, naturally, of course, that number will be adjusted. So I think we're going to, it could be, there's a term for that, Enrique, where, the numbers here now, but that's because things are still kind of filtering through.
Yeah, there's a little lag, right?
Thank you, Enrique.
Numbers.
Yes, a lagging indicator maybe. But your thoughts here, or general thoughts about where the economy, any of those numbers there?
Well, in general, we see it through the supply chain very clearly, right? Demand is down, and everyone agrees that demand is down. Now, the Fed is doing a good job, or at least what they're doing, moving the interest rates has helped a lot, and we see it in the article that you shared with us and you're talking about today. So how effective is that going to be to prevent the full-blown recession? Then we're still waiting to see that, right? I think that the Fed might actually have to continue raising interest, but again, I'm not an expert either. This is my own personal opinion based on what I know and what I talk, some of the conversations that I've had with other people. But yes, I think the good news is that it seems to be working. So maybe interest rate will probably get closer to 5, maybe 5.5%. But before we're thinking they could probably go all the way to 6 and 7. So I think there's good news in the article. Now, I also believe, to Sophia's point, that we are very bad at projections. And I think it's both. Sofia mentioned a lot when it came to demand, and we're usually very optimistic. But I would argue that we're equally bad when it comes to like bad news. I think we're kind of exaggerate both. And so I don't know how to factor in the media in all this. I totally believe that their media has been portraying this recession very, very negatively, and maybe missing some of these kind of key indicators that you mentioned, like unemployment and things like that. So I don't know where we are. I think the media has a big part to play. Hopefully it won't become one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. So let's just be aware, right? Just read more, be aware. Don't follow whatever you read on your Instagram, WhatsApp, or any other social media, right? Just
especially because the wording is so misleading.
Yeah.
Like when you get just snackables. I'm gonna
Right.
use that one.
Snackable. I like it.
Who in the world uses snackables around here? That's terrible.
Scott taught me that. So
That's right.
when
We coined that.
when you see those like tiny bits of news, it's very misleading because it
Yeah.
makes you think you know it all. Like the other day, I read something like they wanted to source cement and concrete from space, and I was like, "What? This cannot be real." So I dig more, and I found it's not like that. It's just like a way to get attention. But many friends were telling me like, "Oh my God, they're gonna source concrete from space," and it's not true. So to Shelly's point again, maybe these numbers feel wrong because of the title of the news or how they frame it. But once you read it and dig out more, you find out the real thing is another story.
Yes,
Absolutely.
context is important. Doing the work, doing the homework, challenging all assumptions is really important. Paul Harvey, the story behind it, or the rest of the story, going and finding that is really important. So I agree with y'all. Now, with all of that said, some of the latest banking projections, and we'll see how far off they are, Enrique and Sofia. They're expecting a little bit of growth in the first quarter 2023 from an economic standpoint, and then really at least the majority of, not everybody, but a lot of experts tend to believe the last 3 quarters of the year is where we're going to see some not so good numbers. So we'll see how that plays out. But the sky's not falling, Enrique and Sofia, right? Enrique, go ahead.
Well, no, just like experience share on something that I just heard from a friend of mine, which I believe was really brilliant. Like what they're doing in their company as they're forecasting their demand and just projecting and having the strategic plan for this year. What they did is basically just hit the two columns, 2020, 2021, and they're basically basing all their projections on 2019. So what they're, I guess, saying is, let's just forget about this last 2 years. They were just way too difficult to understand. We will make our plan based on 2019 and all the growth that we'll have. And it looks different, right? Because if you factor in 2020 and 2021,
Right.
there's no way you can grow, right?
Right.
Most industries, most companies. So I thought it was like a very nice trick that they're applying right now to make sure that not only their sales force, but their operational team and everyone is living aligned to reality, right?
Right.
So forget about the pandemic. Let's just plan without those 2 years in and see how it looks. And I bet that even with recession, if we do end up getting one, if you expand your horizon and average it out for the last
Yes.
4 years, it will look very different.
Well, you know what? We'll see. We will see. And of course, we will keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on there. For the sake of time here today, Enrique and Sofia, first off, y'all both are getting high praise from one Leah Luton. That's right. Hey, Mom, love you. In Aiken, South Carolina. She's really enjoying our guest today. Thank you for that, Leah Luton. So let's do this. I as well. I'm really enjoying y'all's take and the conversation through all these stories, but we're going to wrap on a project both of y'all are working on and leading, and that's Supply Chain Now in Espanol, right? So Spanish only programming on all things supply chain, logistics, and leadership, you name it. But don't take my word for it. Sofia, let's start with you. What can folks expect either in the rearview mirror with what y'all have done or in the weeks and months to come?
I don't know if it's a spoiler, but but I think you can expect a new look, a very exciting guest coming up. Um, I think additionally, all the topics that are going to be shared are not only related to supply chain, which that broadens the way in which we look at things.
Mm.
And you also get to find that connection to other industries, other roles, other companies, which is kind of nice. What else? I think more connection to the audience. That's something that we're actively seeking. And yeah, I think things are coming very good, very exciting, and it's time to learn Spanish. I would just say that.
That's right.
Nice.
I'm gonna bone up on that on my Spanish speaking ability, Sophia. I certainly appreciate the challenge. Now, Enrique,
It's been the third year that Scott has told me that, but
that's true.
And
That's
we
true.
have them
counting,
on
he's
video.
counting.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
we have
plenty of
evidence.
video
Oh
evidence.
man!
of
All
this
right,
as
all
well.
right. Y'all got me good there. All right. Well, here's an example of the most recent episode, Sophia and Enrique. Enrique, let's shift over to you. Talk about this episode maybe, and talk about what's coming with
Yeah,
Supply Now in Espanol.
Luis Sierra, very thoughtful leader in Mexico, disrupting the airline business in Mexico. He is also part of the conscious capitalism movement. So a very interesting approach to this very, of course, I don't want to use the word old fashioned, but it's a very traditional industry that
Yep.
has been developing quickly. So I think Sophia's right. I think it will be very exciting. I think we actually are getting very good guests now, and I think their experiences are wide ranging and very interesting. So I've been having a blast having the conversations, and I also have been learning a lot. So if you kind of are interested in similar conversations, please don't hesitate. Join us, subscribe.
And if you're interested in like kind of knowing what this episode is about, you can go to the supply chain page and read the transcript in English. It might not be 100% the exact words, but I think that's a way you can also like learn about it. This one's very interesting. It's about air freight and air cargo. And right now, especially in Mexico, there is going to be a huge shift in how air cargo companies are going to be impacted by a government policy. So that's also interesting, new challenges ahead. And yeah.
Well said. Well said, Sophia and
Oh, yes,
Enrique.
there are captions in YouTube.
Yes. So while the languages are being conducted in Spanish, still for our English speakers out there, the YouTube videos have English closed captions. And again, as Sophia made a great point, it's not going to be perfect translation. You know, we're getting better and better, thanks to the whole team. But y'all check that out. And Enrique, Sophia, great work. I'm really excited about what is to come with this tremendous program here.
Yeah, and I think especially for the people that are working in Latin American regions, to have this context of these people in the industry and news, that's also a way of growing in that region you're leading.
Excellent point. Excellent point. You know, there's all sorts of growing opportunity across Mexico, Latin, South America. So it's excellent call out, Sophia. Okay, folks, I hate that we've kind of reached the end of the show here today. Hey, one last comment here. Peter Bole, all night and all day. Great to see you. He says,
hi.
good day. He's been listening in the background. Be well and stay safe. Thank you, Peter, and great to see you here as well. I hope you have a wonderful week coming up. All right. So, Enrique, one last question for you and Sophia. How can folks connect with you, Enrique?
Yeah, you can go to our website at vectorgl.com, or you can hook me up by going to LinkedIn under Enrique Alvarez, Vector Global Logistics.
Awesome. And we've got the link there for leveraging logistics for Ukraine. You one click away. You can sign up for the next meeting. You can just learn more about what's going on, getting some of the market intel on the need. Check all that there, vectorgl.com or that link. And Sophia, how can folks connect with you?
You can shoot me an invite on LinkedIn. Like, it's my social media. So, yeah.
Wonderful. It's just that easy, right? Just that
it's very
easy.
Very easy.
Well, hey, connect with Sophia, connect with Enrique and their teams, get involved. Because most importantly here, as we start to sign off here, it's about deeds, not words, right? Take action. We've all had plenty and too much of lip service leadership. So big thanks to Enrique Alvarez, Sofia Rivas Herrera. Big thanks to all of y'all that tuned in, all the comments that we could and could not get to. Y'all keep it coming. But on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton signing off for now, challenging you to do good, to give forward, and to be the change. And with that said, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.